How did I come about doing this? Well, it kind of was a self-motivated project just because being an independent filmmaker like on Long Island, you know, you're just far away enough from the city where you might not be getting that type of work. So I kind of wanted to make something that I would want to be hired for in the future kind of thing, you know. So I'm very into documentary filmmaking and, you know, environmental issues and supporting local communities. So this was kind of just an all-encompassing project that had all of those themes woven into it. And just growing up on Long Island, I'd always been amazed by, you know, the further you travel east and how all of a sudden it just opens up into these like vast farmlands and open fields, and just much different from you know, Western Suffolk where I grew up, where it's a lot of commercialized businesses and a lot of houses, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of houses out here, a lot more than there used to be, certainly, and that's the reason why it's so important to protect the farmland. And the development rights program has been successful, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot to unpack in everything that you covered. But so you grew up in Western Suffolk?
Yeah, I grew up in Smithtown, for anyone local who knows that.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I don't know how many farmers we have here and how many East End people there are here, but obviously, if you're going to do about farming, you have to get to the East End, as was said. But without the local connections, how did you connect to all the different sources that you covered in the film?
So I didn't know any of these farmers prior to starting this project. It was a lot of cold calls, cold emails, just reaching out and letting the cards fall where they may. I think it worked out really well. As you can see, there's some amazing farmers and just amazing people in general that really carried the film, and they were just, you know, so welcoming. And with the amount of people that I reached out to, I probably got like a 10% response rate, and I just kind of feel like it was meant to be that way. And the people that are in the film were meant to fill those roles, and they were so welcoming and allowed me to come back. You know, being that I was the only one really producing this project, I'd be like, oh, I think I missed a shot. You mind if I come back? And they're like, yeah, come on down, no big deal. So it was just really nice, and it was a nice excuse to meet a lot of people doing wonderful things.
Yeah, well, they also, you did them a great favor, obviously, by doing the film that you did. And having, when you started out, you wanted to do the film about farming, and you didn't know the people, you didn't really know much about farming. So was it the people that you talked to who are all great spokespeople for the causes that they're talking about, the interesting topic? So did that sort of tell the story for you? Because I'd just say the 3 or 4 things that are the main things that come out of this is the cultural nature of farming, what the culture of farming it is, as it is, the financial challenges for farmers everywhere, but specifically on the East End, the scientific aspect in terms of regenerative farming, in terms of local farming, in terms of organic, in terms of protecting the soil, and then the recognition, the failure to recognize the importance of this connectivity that goes on. So all that is very strongly spoken to in the film and beautifully put together. Did that come to you through the people that you were talking to, that's kind of storytelling?
So when I started the project, I was a bit naive and thought it would be like all-encompassing, and I wanted to get like fishermen and oyster farming and sod farming, because there's a lot of that on Long Island too. And just like the more you start filming, like there are storylines that kind of organically come together, and that definitely happened. And as you know, the production got further along, and you know, I'm editing as I go, I'm kind of realizing that there's certain themes that are worth exploring more than others, and it's important to, you know, narrow down the storyline so, you know, it's, you know, people can take something home and be actionable about it. So it ended up being something where you ended up highlighting the local nature and supporting your local farmers, businessmen, the local economy. The environmental aspect is very important because, you know, like was mentioned a few times, the housing markets are threatening just like open land in general out here, or what we have left of it. But I mean, I had, you know, before I started production, I had an idea of what I wanted to cover, and meeting the people and getting filming going really dictated where it was going to end up.
Well, and it ended up in a beautiful place. So the fact that you're everything, that you're the producer and the director of photography and the editor and the director and so forth. So was that a joy for you to be able to have ultimate control over every single aspect?
Yeah, having the control, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. Like, making every decision and, forgive any of the technical difficulties. Like when one person's doing it, it does end up being a lot. But it was ultimately fantastic being the person who was able to make the decisions and not having to answer to anybody else, and being able to use the clips that I wanted to, and in that nature, just having the control and the final decision in that. It allowed me to work on it when I needed to, and I didn't have to answer to anybody in that way. But in the same vein, it was tough because there was a few times where I lost momentum. Like, life happens, and if you're the only one behind this project and you're the only one motivated to keep it going, it's tough to ebb and flow with the momentum when it comes and goes. And especially when the pandemic hit, I was around. I'm like, okay, spring 2020. This is where it's all going to come together. And of course, I ended up sitting on my couch for months. And towards the end, I was able to get some more stuff. So it got to the point where 2020 was a good time to sit with the edit and really fine tune everything. And then towards the end and the beginning of 2021, I was able to really just find those gaps and stuff that needed to be filled. Yeah.
Well, that's it. I'm really glad that it came together the way it did. So where did you train to learn to do all these different things?
So I picked up a camera in high school, and I would skateboard, ride bikes, rollerblade with my friends, and it kind of started that way. And in a way, that is kind of like amateur documentary filmmaking in its own. You're capturing life, and you're trying to get these tricks. It's all real in that regard. But my passion for it kind of matured, and I ended up going to film school in Orlando, Florida, for a couple of years. And then I ended up back here, and like I said, this isn't like a hub of filmmaking, being right outside the city. It's I really want to do something, and I just had to make use of the the resources that I had, and that's what led me to exploring something local. But I learned a tremendous amount just from making this alone. Like, anything that I could have learned in film school wouldn't. This is 10 times more of the kind of learning experience, and you find applicable skills. You got to do it on your own. Yeah. I found myself so many times in the analysis paralysis stage, where you're just overthinking things constantly, and I'm just all right, I'm gonna do this. I finally felt like I was in a comfortable place in my life with my career to have free time to be able to do this, and just starting is the hardest part, honestly, and then everything, as long as you care enough to finish it, you'll figure out everything else.
Well, yeah. That sounds perfect to me. Two technical questions. One, were you also responsible for choosing the score?
Yes. So,
I thought so.
This had no budget. So what happened was I just subscribed. You pay for a subscription to musical websites, and then you get the rights to all these unknown artists, basically. So that's actually a very tricky but very vital part of film, is just having the music to carry you along the way, and well, I noticed it right away.
Okay. That opening shot, I said, okay, I've got to ask him about the score, because that was very, very thoughtfully chosen, and I thought it was excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a character in its own right, having that music to carry on the narrative. But yeah, it was just hours and hours of just listening to random songs. I'm all right, this feels right, this feels right. And it was kind of a what fits, and also sometimes maybe just starting the scene with the song that's inspirational, and then having the edit go to that song in a way. It's kind of a balancing act in that regard. Yeah. Well, it came out beautifully, I'd say. Now, one other technical question is, did you do all the drone work? Yeah. So. So I would say I did 95% of it. I actually had a friend come out one of the days with the cattle grazing and the bison, and he was nice enough to get some shots for me then. But yeah, I mean, and my lovely wife actually came out a couple days, and there's a couple clips I think from her at 8 Hands Farm. That was a big help. But yeah, for the most part, it was me behind the camera and the remote for the drone. Well, that came out beautifully. So I want to open it up to questions from the audience, but I want to say one other thing, which was we saw a film. Some of us were lucky enough to see a film last night called "To Which We Belong," which is about farming, regenerative farming, which is what Mr. Lee was talking about, up from Sang Lee Farms. And there was some mention of it too in some of the other the Tweeds Farm, the right North Quarter Farm, and right. 8 Hands Farm. Yeah, they're all actually they all have regenerative practices. They're all in regenerative practices, and this film was about that and about all over the world, and it's about
in addition to protecting the soil, it goes to the aspects of fighting climate change and carbon sequestering and other things, and water saving and so forth, protecting the soil and the biodiversity in the soil. So it's a lot of coming together of different topics around farming and around the soil and around what we're facing today. So it was just beautiful that we were able to bring that in. So I wanted to mention that because it seems like it's so important, and more people need to be aware of that, as they are aware of where does their food come from and how can we do this. And the big challenge, of course, is to scale it up to the amount of need that we have and how much land is left to farm and how can it be farmed correctly. So just a really, really important film and really, really well done, especially since you had to do everything.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Props
Thank you.
for giving credit to your wife, certainly. So do we have questions from the audience? People that want to, oh, here we go, right here.
So I know that you can't include anyone. I sort of felt that farming on the South Fork was conspicuously absent. And you did say only 10% of people really got back to. So I just was curious about that, even just visually, it felt absent to me.
That was just a logistical thing of like me only being one person and being able to, go to the farms that answered back kind of thing. Like I said, when I started the project, I thought I was like, oh, I'm going to end up in Brooklyn on the west side and then all the way to Montauk. And then it just didn't come together like that, just, being a one-man band and trying to keep it together the whole time. So, yeah, I mean, the title, it could be a little deceiving as Farming Long Island. It's not as broad as the whole entire island, and I would have loved to include, many more farms. But the intention is, to motivate people to be actionable, and then, if you're on the South Fork, I would hope that this inspired you to go and frequent the farms that are near you, and patronize them.
And it was a great film, and it was really informative. And so the other part of my question is, will it be streaming anywhere? Because I have a lot of people I want to say, go watch it.
Yeah, so this is actually like the only festival that's lined up. I had a screening this past summer, and I was just kind of waiting for the right time to let it live online indefinitely. So barring any changes, I do have the intention of releasing it online in the beginning of next year. So I have an Instagram if you want to keep up to date. I think it's farming_LI. But if you're following or have any connections to someone in the festival or something, I'm sure it'll make its way to you. But yeah, I'm planning on just having it live on like YouTube and Vimeo and stuff in the future. Yeah.
Do you have a website for the film?
So I just have my own website. Again, I can't afford a second one for this film, but there's a page dedicated to it, and like I just mentioned, the Instagram as well. So there are ways to keep up to date and see what's going on, and I will post that info there when it is available online.
Right, and I think that to Claudia's point, that the editing and what you were saying before, not only who got back to you, but you have to edit. So in other words, there's a whole other movie to be made about the wine industry out here, which has replaced potato farming to a large degree on the North Fork and on the South Fork. And certainly thank God for the Peconic Land Trust, because there's not as much remaining farmland on the South Fork as there is on the North Fork. But there is some, and there are very worthy farmers out here in the Halsey family and the Ludlows and other farm that still exist on the South Fork. But the Peconic Land Trust is what's behind that, and it just goes to the rarity, the scarcity of farmland and the pressures that are eating it up. So I think you definitely covered that all. We have a question here.
Did you have a prior knowledge or interest in agriculture, or was this really learning on the fly?
So I mean, I had that curiosity, like I mentioned earlier, just driving out east and seeing, but that's all it really was. Any of my knowledge came from watching other documentaries, and that was, like you touched on the regenerative aspect, that was very appealing to me, and the motivation was I wanted to see who was farming responsibly around here. Turns out a lot of people are, which was really lovely to learn. But that was my only prior knowledge. There are some very informative documentaries on farming and the food system. And that was another part that really motivated me to want to explore my backyard. Yeah.
It was interesting how your learning and putting it together actually automatically made an educational film out of it.
You know, that's
Thank you,
sort of
yeah.
talking about that earlier, is that we all learn from what you were learning, and at the same time, which makes it a lot more sort of fresh application. Oh, in the back?
Yeah, do you know why the soil is so amazing that John also talked about?
I don't want to butcher any scientific facts on that, but it has a lot to do with just how Long Island was created, and it was mentioned like the glaciers. It's just the minerals that end up being in just naturally from how this island was formed end up being really rich, and I think the depth of it is also an important aspect. Yeah. Well, that is the interesting thing about again, it's all locally. The local aspect is very important, and the soil you're going to find here is different from anywhere else in the state. And again, if I was able to include more of the wine aspect of the farming, which again that was an intention, but it just it got left on the cutting room floor. How winemakers refer to the terroir is basically just the environment that these grapes grow in, or what gives it the taste. So I'm sure that has some effect on the food as well.
Absolutely. So we have one more question here.
I want to say you did an outstanding job, and I think you'll be producing many more.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. Thank you.
Producing, directing, director of photography, editing, score choosing, and other things. So do you have another project in mind?
Yeah, so the next project was kind of like the other half of this one, where I did want to include marine life and the water conditions and aquaculture and keeping our waters clean, because that goes hand in hand with keeping your land healthy. You want the waters to be clean too, and the food coming from that. There's a whole other food industry from our local waters, so I want to explore that aspect next, and of course have that environmental aspect as well. Yeah.
That sounds great. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you to everybody who came out. Thank you.